whatever sparks you inside, whatever motivates you every single day, do that no matter what. Even when it feels like it's not meant for you, you have to, those are and that time is when you really have to believe in yourself and kind of push through that moment, because that's when you know change is happening, right? Like when you're so close, there's going to be so much resistance, and you just like, it's like the final mile. You just got to like push through.
What up? I'm Dramos, and this is the recap. Of course, as I do each and every week, breaking down some of the biggest headlines from this last week. Salute, as always, to our girl, B. Marie, who does our daily IG live show, Rise and Vibe, giving you the daily headlines. As I do each and every week, I have an amazing guest hopping on in just a little bit. This week, it is Haskiri Velazquez, who is Daisy on the Saved by the Bell reboot. So she'll be hopping on in just a little bit, chopping it up with me about some of the biggest headlines. And we'll also just kind of, see what it's like being a Latina in such a huge role with such a, huge brand like Saved by the Bell that's so legendary. But before we get into that, man, let's get into the BS from this last week. So one of the biggest stories from this last week is basically how a bunch of nerds on a Reddit message board managed to pull one over on Wall Street by collectively buying stocks in hurting companies like GameStop and AMC, thus driving up the price on those stocks. Now, I'm not even going to pretend like I understand, like, in totality, what the hell all this means. But what I do know is this whole move is kind of being billed as like this whole David and Goliath story, good versus evil, poor versus rich, and it's managed to tick off a lot of rich people as hedge funds lost billions of dollars this week as a result of these moves. Now, I understand where they're coming from. These rich Wall Street guys, I mean, if this keeps up, how can we honestly expect these guys to be able to continue to afford to pay for their high-price escorts? No, not her. Her. Anyway, moving on. So this whole fiasco has led to the stock trading app Robinhood to temporarily block the trading of stocks like GameStop and AMC. And this has led to a multitude of people calling out Robinhood, claiming that this move impedes on what is supposed to be a free market for all and not just the rich. And of course, our queen, AOC, always out there front and center, took to Twitter demanding an investigation. And what was surprising about this, she even was getting some support from some strange places. And this included Donald Trump butt buddy, Senator Ted Cruz. But the funny part about this is that old Teddy, he done messed up because he seems to have forgotten that our girl, AOC, she keeps that same energy. And she made sure to remind him of that via Twitter by saying, and I quote, "You almost had me murdered 3 weeks ago, so you can sit this one out." And actually, it's funny because it seems like Ted Cruz is not the only Republican who somehow forgot about the events that happened on January 6th in our nation's capital. So let's quickly just give them a little reminder.
But just remember this, you're stronger, you're smarter, you've got more going than anybody, and they try and demean everybody having to do with us, and you're the real people, you're the people that built this nation.
We're seeing
You're not the
protesters
people.
overcome the police. The police are now running back into the Capitol building.
We were just told that there has been tear gas.
The behavior that we are witnessing is shameful, unpatriotic, and above all, it is unlawful.
Now, we've all seen that footage over and over again plastered on our TV screens or on our social media feeds, but these representatives actually lived through it. Yet somehow, some way, only 5 Republicans voted in favor of the current impeachment trial of Donald Trump being constitutional. And one of those people who decided to sit that vote out was House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, who originally, after these riots happened, was condemning them and even seemed like he was going to be in favor of holding Donald Trump responsible for his actions. But in typical Republican, no backbone, no spine, no actual cause type of way, he flip-flopped. Surprise, surprise. He flip-flopped so much that he decided to hop on a plane this last week in the middle of a pandemic and go visit his old buddy Donald. And of course, they had a adorable little photo op together. And who knows? The two of them probably even squeezed in a quick little game of tennis for all we know. Ugh, quite the visual. I'm sorry that I did that to you. Let's kind of cleanse our palates just a little bit and move on from this nonsense. So I'm going to bring on this week's guest who will hopefully kind of lighten things up just a little bit for us. So my guest this week is an actress who plays Daisy on the reboot of Saved by the Bell on Peacock TV. Haskiri Velazquez, how you feeling?
Good. And can I just say you killed my name?
Did I? I was a little nervous.
No, Haskiri Velazquez. Yeah, you did it. You did it.
Okay, good. I actually come from like a line of Velazquez in my family, so I had the last name right over here, but the first name threw me off.
Oh, wow. Wait, so is your last name Velazquez too?
No, so my last name is Ramos, but on my father's side, like all his cousins are Velazquez.
Are they Puerto Rican?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
We're low-key related.
Yeah, somehow. Exactly. This is off to a great start then. See, we're like figuring out our genealogy over here is good. I like it.
Right.
So I wanna dive into all that you have going on. But before we do that, if it's cool with you, I want to kind of get your take on a few, hot topics that have gone on this last week.
Okay.
Nothing crazy, I promise.
Okay.
So, I mean, let's start in like the movie world. Disney just released a trailer for their first film that's set in Southern Asia, Raya and the Last Dragon. Obviously, there's a lot of people excited about this because it's providing representation for Asians, and something that obviously I'm sure we all can understand the importance of. I mean, for you specifically as a Latina in this industry, why do you think representation is so important?
Honestly, representation is definitely important because I feel like when I was growing up, I would turn to the TV to see a role model, to find some sort of inspiration, to see where I can, like, who I want to be when I grow up. What am I going to be in the future, right? Mm-hmm. So I think, if you don't see yourself represented in a positive way, first and foremost, in a positive way, and you don't see anybody like you on TV, you kind of don't know where to go, right? Like, where do you search? Who do you look up to? Mm-hmm. But also, I think representation, I mean, it has to mirror today's world, right? Mm-hmm. When you walk outside your front door, who are you seeing? You're not seeing, and I don't want to get too political, but you're not seeing a specific stereotype,
right.
Like you're just not seeing one ethnicity.
It's not just white people.
Right. Right. You're just not seeing white people every day. You run into a bunch of different ethnic backgrounds. I mean, so many mixed races. Like I grew up in New York City, and everywhere I turned, there was always somebody looking so exotic, and you wouldn't know where they come from because they're just, there's so much in them. And I think it's important to just kind of mirror today's world. Show colors, show the right representation. I mean, why not?
Right. Like, I think you hit on two really incredibly important things. And I think the first one being somebody to look up to, right? Because especially in a creative field where there's no clear path to get to your end goal, it can be an incredibly lonely journey. You know what I mean? And I can speak for myself. I'm sure you've had the same experiences. Sometimes the only hint of encouragement comes from an outside source. It comes from somebody you see on the internet or TV, because the reality is most times your parents just don't understand you trying to pursue this. The people around you can't quite fathom it, So I think you found something incredibly important there, where being able to see somebody who looks like you kind of at least reaffirms and gives you some of that confidence, I feel like,
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. You said everything I said, but better.
And then
mushed it into the right words. Yeah.
I mean, the show's called The Recap, so this is kind of what I do, you know what I mean? So I have a lot of practice at this.
Good, yeah.
But I mean, and the second thing you said that is so important, which I feel like kind of goes unspoken, is that if we're having these shows that are enacting sort of real life scenarios to a degree, why is it that they don't actually look like the real world? You know what I mean? And there is no real answer except for the fact that the people in charge don't see fit for it to actually look like the real world, you know?
Yeah, they're not casting the people they should be casting, and
Right.
the doors that they should be opening. Yeah. So I'm really thankful, like, for the whole Saved by the Bell, because it's a Latina who like spearheads this show, and
Yeah.
you don't see that. And just like a Latina that's Dominican and Puerto Rican who has curves and speaks Spanish, and it's not the most perfect Spanish. It's that like real slang from Boston Heights,
Yeah.
So I really love that, because I know that girls around my neighborhood are going to tune in and see themselves represented, and are going to hopefully get some sort of inspiration, or, spark some creativity in what they want to do when they grow up, and, feel good about themselves.
No, I love that. And I'm glad you touched on the show, because one thing I found kind of so profound about it was, you think initially, all right, Saved by the Bell reboot, it's just comedy. It's just going to kind of be this, very simple kind of concept to it. You know what I mean? Not much depth. It's just entertainment. But in the trailer, we see you guys, taking on the tackling of real issues, like how the world is different for those of privilege, how it is different for certain people than others, I mean, why do you think that was such an important thing, or I guess the people behind the scenes, when they talk to you about the concept of this reboot, why that was such a prime focus for them?
It's funny. I didn't really sit down and we didn't really talk about it. I think it was more like, once we opened the pilot episode script at the table read, everybody was on board. Like everyone knew, like, this is what we need on TV in this moment in time. This is a show that has taken risk from, back in the day already, because you already saw that they were such a diverse cast. Like, never really saw that on TV, right?
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
Lisa, with Mario. And why not take it up a notch and really shed light on the topics that need to be spoken about, right? Because it has such a broad audience, and we're touching these people who probably don't want to have these conversations at home. So it's kind of like, we're going to trick you into watching our show.
Right.
You're going to have fun doing it, but you're also going to get educated, and you're going to want to have these conversations as soon as we turn off the TV.
Right.
And Tracy, like our showrunner, and Franco, like both of them are just so brilliant in what they do that it's almost like you're watching it, you're enjoying it, and you're not realizing that you're getting that kind of education in a sense, because it's so lighthearted, and you see it in a different light. And I think that's really important, because a lot of people have one perspective on a lot of things, and you kind of see it in so many different ways with all the characters involved. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that, like how you it's like the medicine with the candy kind of theory, but I love how you broke that down, because I think it is, for a lot of white people, it probably is jarring in this moment right now to hear so much talk about white privilege and how, it's not fair for everyone, and how people of color have systemically and historically had, a harder time doing just simple things and finding their own footing, so it is important. I think it's brilliant to kind of see a way of doing it that's still fun, but people are still able to kind of get the message, because I do get it. Like, I get it as a white person, you might feel under attack right now in this moment,
Yeah. You're like, okay, all right, next episode, I guess. But it's funny that you say that, because I went on, I just made a TikTok, and I went on Saved by the Bell. I was like, let's see if anybody posts this about Saved by the Bell. And there was this one post where it was like, oh, this spoke volumes to me. And it was this thing where I'm like, I go in, and Dexter, who plays Devontae, he's in trouble. And I'm like, what happened? And he's like, yo. And I'm like, that. But the translation is like, racism is happening. And I'm like, of course it is. I got you.
Right.
So it's funny that they did that. And they did it so smart. Like, no one would know. Like, somebody, like, people are just catching on to these kind of little like Easter eggs, and they're like, oh racism is happening, and either I'm a part of that problem, or I'm going to see how I can fix the problem.
Right. No, that's beautiful. I'd say one other thing I loved, I was checking out your social media, was like, you're almost taking people along for this journey that you've been on, getting casted for this show. You're being very candid about how big this moment is for you. And I saw you posting like the magazine that you were being featured in, and all these different things, I mean, what are you hoping that people take away from you as you're so honest about your story as it's happening?
Yeah. I feel like there's so many things. Definitely, I want them to feel inspired first and foremost. I want them to know that no matter how big your dream is, to work towards that goal every single day, no matter what people around you are saying. Oh my God, there's so many things. I just want to say, do you. Like, I want to like get really good. I don't want to. Just really like F the naysayers and like whatever sparks you inside, whatever motivates you every single day, do that no matter what. Even when it feels like it's not meant for you, you have to, and that time is when you really have to believe in yourself and kind of push through that moment, because that's when you know change is happening, right? Like when you're so close, there's going to be so much resistance and you just like, it's like the final mile. You just got to like push through. I just want them to be like super inspired. I want them to know that like they can do anything, be anything they want, no matter where they come from, how they grew up, what kind of education they have. I didn't go to college. I'm not supporting people not going to college. Let's just but
it's not for everybody.
So, yeah, I felt like college wasn't for me, and I felt like I had a vision, I had a game plan, and that's what I did. And I believed in myself, and I think definitely always believe in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, nobody else will.
Right.
And work on yourself internally so that can express outward.
Yeah. I love it. You know what the beauty is? Like, obviously there's so much negative when it comes to social media, but also there is the beauty that you can genuinely go along for the journey, you know, on somebody's journey, I should say. You know what I mean? You can be in that moment and feel like you're a part of it. And on the other side of it, you can feel like you have a support system outside of yourself. You know, that is the kind of beautiful thing that our generation has. And hopefully more people continue to start sharing these kinds of moments, you know?
I mean, I think also one of the reasons why I share my journey on social media is because when social media first began, it was like all the highlights, right? It was like a highlight reel. Nobody showed like their mess ups, or, you know, the times that they were so close and didn't get it and like went to bed eating a pineapple ice cream crying. Like nobody shows these things. Right. And I'm like, I know y'all not out here just like waking up and just being like blessed and getting what you want.
Absolutely.
It was like, there was work behind that. Why not show that? I think the journey is the most important part, right? Because if you just get what you want and don't have to work for it, you're not going to know what it's like you're not going to know what it's like to actually have that and take advantage of that moment, because you don't know what it's like not to have it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to turn this into like a TED talk, but I love where you're going.
Right. Sorry.
No, you're good. I love this kind of conversation. I can go on for hours talking about it. But what I can say also is that it's also those speed bumps, those negative moments that make you the person that is prepared to now receive these blessings. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like any new skill you've learned because you didn't have somebody to help you with it is now like a beautiful thing you have in your arsenal that you're going to use towards something else. And that's what people kind of have to keep in mind, you know, as they go along on the journey. Every shortcoming teaches you something that is going to be incredibly beneficial once you get to that right fit, you know?
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, so obviously you're coming off a great year, having a great moment. I mean, COVID kind of rocked this entire world. It's kind of weird to like, in one hand, be having this incredible point in your life, you know, and on the other hand, just seeing so much like just devastation as a result of this pandemic. Yeah. I mean, we saw the news this last week that Budweiser and a few other companies were pulling out of doing advertising for the Super Bowl for the first time in 37 years, just out of like financial fear and uncertainty, you know. It's just
about the stocks.
Yes, with the Reddit and all taking over.
GameStop, AMC. Oh.
I mean,
yeah, I don't know. Things are pretty crazy in this world, I must say. A lot of things are happening.
A lot of things are happening. A lot of change is happening, some good, some bad. I mean, for you, what has been maybe some of the biggest changes outside of this that you've made in your life, whether it's like your perspective, your routines, or even like a new skill that you developed?
Ooh, you asked really great questions. And very different from like a lot of the interviews I've done.
I love that.
Let's see. Okay. Definitely, I feel like one has to be like being more patient with myself and not taking myself too seriously at times.
Yeah.
Because once I got the show, I felt like there was a sense of pressure of if a season 2 doesn't happen, where do I go from here, right? I feel like all these people are like rooting for me and supporting me, and I don't want to let them down. So what do I do, right? So I think a lot of it was being patient with myself and finding other things that I have interest in, right? I'm very like thankful to have a boyfriend that is super smart. He's in like the financial aspect, fitness, coaching, life mentoring, kind of like a do-it-all.
Yeah.
And he's like, you need to find something else outside of acting. Maybe you can teach girls how, like, where to start, where to look. Because I never realized that about myself, is that I love teaching.
Yeah.
And it's fun because I never really thought of it, but he's like, every time you talk to somebody, you're kind of always helping them out in the like teacher way. Maybe that's something you want to do, start a YouTube video for girls in these low income neighborhoods that can't afford a class. You can be their free online class.
Yeah.
So yeah, just trying to find like other interests and trying to see how I could continue to inspire outside of acting and reach a bigger audience.
That's beautiful.
So, yeah, and skill wise, I don't know. I would love maybe to go like rollerblading or something.
Okay.
But I don't own any skates. So
you got to get on it. See, I've become like a really good cook during this whole time, so I'm feeling very good about myself in that sense. Yeah.
Okay. You got like, do you throw like the towel over your shoulder and like dice it up like?
Oh yeah. Like I got like fancy pots now, fancy pans. Like I'm like on some real stuff these days, you know? So
you're like an old head.
Yeah. Yeah. A nice night in with, you know, it's nice.
Yeah. You're like, ooh, tonight I'm gonna make linguine.
Right.
You're like, okay.
I'm looking up recipes, you know what I'm saying? Like my life has changed completely. Before it was like I'd be in the club till 3 a.m. DJing, and then like if I was on an off night, I'd be back in the club just like blackout drunk. And now I'm like home in bed by 10 p.m.
But your whole Netflix algorithm is like the greatest baking show or something.
Right.
Something that has to do with cooking. You're like, who did I turn to?
No, absolutely.
I love to cook too. I love to cook. But I don't know. I think I have like major OCD. So I feel like I want new pots in order to start cooking more. Okay. Because, you know, the pots do play a huge part when you're making something.
Yeah.
So we'll share some recipes.
Perfect.
I'll send you some. You can send me some.
I love it. I'm looking forward to it. But I mean, I think kind of putting a bow on this whole conversation. I mean, I loved what you're talking about with things outside of acting and teaching and things like that, because I think what we tend to miss as people who are, you know, striving for great things, and especially in something like the entertainment industry where it can be so much ego and so much self-serving, you know what I mean? And so materialistic and whatever you want, other words you want to use for it. We forget that the success actually comes from when we've arrived at a point that we now can give back to others. You know what I mean? That's like where the real success, the real happiness, the real fulfillment comes from. You know what I mean? I kind of feel like talking to you, I'm seeing that in you. I'm feeling that energy from it, that like you're recognizing that. And that's really why this moment does feel so special for you.
That's so funny. I literally was talking about this to my boyfriend the other day. I said, I feel like for a very long time, I wanted to be an actor more so for myself, right? Like that was my passion. That was my dream. That's what I wanted to do. And I never gave thought of what comes attached, what comes with that responsibility of being an actor until the show dropped. And then I was getting all these young girls and all these people write to me and telling me like, I see myself represented in you. I can relate to you. There's something about Daisy that makes me want to get up in the morning and do something towards my goal. Or, you know, thank you for being this Latina that we've been needing in this industry on a TV show that's the lead, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, holy, like, now I know why I wanted to be an actor. And I didn't know that then because I guess I wasn't, it was more like about me in my head. And then when I saw that response, I said, oh my gosh, this is so much better than being on the show. Mm-hmm. Don't kill me on the show. I love the show. But,
right.
But the outpour of like love and support and just like these positive words that I've been reading, these messages, it's just like, I think it fills my heart in a different way than the show does, being able to pursue my dream, right? Mm-hmm. It's like my heart is pounding when I pursue my dream, but reading these messages, it's like a whole different like feeling, and I want to keep doing that.
Yeah.
And if acting is what is gonna feed that in a sense, then let's keep doing it. And if it's not in the future, if it stops, I hope that I can find whatever it is that can continue to feed that.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Absolutely. No, I love that. I think you said that very well. All right. So listen, Saved by the Bell out now on Peacock TV. Anything else you want people to check out? Where can they find you? Keep up all that you're doing?
Watch Saved by the Bell, obviously, but also watch the 40-year-old version of ERSION. It's on Netflix. It was shot in 35 millimeter black and white. It's a great, great movie. I'm in it. It's like a 180 from Daisy's character. I play Rosa and I have cornrows and I'm a butch Latina.
Nice.
And it's fun.
I love that. Well, listen, Haskiri, thank you so much for tuning in and hopping on here, I should say. You're actually my first guest as we bring this show from like...
Yay! Okay.
So thank you for being a part of it.
Well, thank you for having me, and I will be more than happy to do it again.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, take care.
Bye. Thank you.
Man, big thank you once again to my guest, Haskiri Velazquez. Make sure you go check her out. She is Daisy on the reboot of Saved by the Bell, out now on Peacock TV, and just super positive person, man. I love that she's so present to, all the amazing things that are happening for her right now, as well as recognizing, the duty she has, and also just personally feeling called to want to do more for people. It's just incredibly positive, man. I feel like we definitely brought up the energy on the show just a little bit with her here. And I want to keep that positivity going as I close things out with some words of wisdom and just some, good vibes thrown your way. I'm going to do that in the form of a quote. Now, this week's quote comes to us from Denzel Washington. And the quote is, "At the end of the day, it's not about what you have or even what you've accomplished. It's about who you've lifted up, who you've made better. It's about what you've given back." And I love that, especially in the context to a lot of the conversation, I was having with Haskiri. I think it's incredible to accomplish things for yourself, right? Especially if you are a goal-oriented person, if you have these big dreams and see yourself doing these incredible feats. But you also have to recognize that is not the end game, all that stuff is amazing. And hopefully when you accomplish those things, it does feel incredible for you personally. But the beauty of those things and the real success comes from what you do when you now are in a place of privilege. And when you're in a place of privilege, that means all kinds of ways to give back. Maybe it means uplifting somebody, from your community, teaching people, giving back in that way, if you're able to financially, whatever the case may be. But the actual goal should not be the end game. The end game is being able to put yourself in a position that you can now uplift others and help other people, achieve their goals so they can now continue to pass this whole thing on. Somebody once told me it's about sending the ladder back down once you've reached the rooftop. And I think that's the perfect way to live your life. And that's how you find yourself living a fulfilled life, when you're doing things and serving a greater purpose beyond just yourself. Now, with that said, thank y'all so much for tuning in. I appreciate all the love and support we've been having on the show thus far. Of course, I will catch you next week, breaking down whatever happens in between. We'll get into it all. Salute, as always, once again, to our girl, B. Marie. Check out our IG Live daily show, Rise and Vibe, where she gives you the day's biggest headlines. And then, of course, tune in with me as I just recap all of the week's biggest stories. Until next time, I'll catch you later. Be safe. Bye.